All right. Jason Schultz of Idletron, how are you doing today?
Great, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing good. First of all, congratulations on this new album. It's truly an excellent record. Now, you had a chance to live with this album for quite a few months. So, what is your opinion of it now?
Um, yeah, I think we're really proud of it. I know I certainly am. I think when we kind of got through the recording cycle of our first record, and had a little bit of time to sit with that one, we knew what we wanted to do on the second record. We kind of knew how we wanted to approach it. Um, I think we learned a lot from the process of the first one, and we kind of started developing a little bit more the band we wanted to be
Mhm.
on the second record. So it's kind of interesting. The second record came about in pretty short order, right, from the first one.
Yeah.
We've got about a little bit about a 2-year cycle going right now as far as our albums or in between albums, I guess. And it was kind of interesting. It just happened really organically. We weren't planning on putting an album out so soon after our debut, because the debut came out in 2022. I remember when we talked to you about it, it was kind of right on the eve of us releasing it. We'd played a few shows in Chicago and really just started playing shows in general. And we just had a lot of ideas kind of pent up. We'd been writing quite a bit. And, originally we're thinking, well, hey, maybe we'll do like an EP or a smaller scale release to kind of bridge the gap between a first album and then a second album. But we found ourselves with a lot of great material that we felt really strongly about. So we ended up going into the studio a lot sooner. And I think, the collection of songs that became a Clarion Call is really um, cohesive, but also kind of starts hinting at where we'd like to take the band in the future as far as different elements, different influences, different sounds, that sort of thing.
Did you have a specific goal in mind when preparing for this album?
Um, yeah, so I know that the big thing for us was we wanted to explore a little bit different um production on this album. We wanted to explore some different sounds and just kind of give ourselves the ability to do so. I think on the first album, it was very much my, co-writer and kind of co-founder of the band, Martin Bowman, and I. It was our um, just for getting together, writing songs, and kind of seeing what happened, right? That was the whole ethos behind Sibylline Age, which was our debut. Um, and on this one, we were kind of years into the process, years into the partnership, and we were much more comfortable with each other's kind of limits, I guess. I knew when I was writing my kind of contributions or riffs or songs or ideas, kind of what Martin was capable of. I think when he was writing his ideas and riffs and songs and things, he knew what I was capable of, kind of knew what each other liked. We were able to bounce ideas off of each other a little bit more readily. And I think we developed that shorthand through the process of writing the first record. So for this one, when it came to ideas and kind of what we were trying to achieve, I think it was bringing those influences together a little bit more and also maybe in some ways tightening things up a little bit and kind of not to say we didn't develop that sound on the first record, but the first record was still us kind of reaching. We were kind of trying to put all those things together and make it cohesive, whereas I feel like on the second album, it is much more cohesive. And I think that was really what we were aiming to do. Still be melodic, still have some of those progressive elements in there, still have some of those kind of um, thrash metal and different styles that kind of got us to form the band in the first place still have those represented, but do it in a way to where, again, we were kind of aiming towards our own sound, our own style, our own niche in the scene at large, I guess, today.
Based on what you're telling me, would you agree that at this point, everyone's role in the band is a little bit more defined?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would. Yeah, I think that what's really cool with this band is apart from the, I guess the only position in the band that's been a bit of a revolving door has been the bassist role, right? Which I think now he wasn't on this record, but he'll be on future recordings. We've got our current bassist Kyle Ludovis, who played with our singer Jake and I in our previous project over the past decade or so. Everyone is really I think we have all developed as friends and as musicians and as players over the last 10 years plus. So we've known each other for a very long time. And I think it part of that process of kind of feeling out where everyone kind of is in the band as far as, what their contributions will be and those sorts of things really has been more defined on this release. So Jake is contributing more lyrics and more vocal ideas, more melodies, those sorts of things. Um, Aaron, our drummer, really kind of was able to dive in and come up with some really cool parts and arrangement ideas and those sorts of things. Uh, so yeah, and then the bassist that played on the record, Trevor Kuda, did some great work as far as, incorporating fretless bass and lots of cool ideas. There's some bass solos on the album, and I think he really did a great job on it. So I think we were just all more comfortable in the process, in each other's abilities. Like I said, that came from when Martin and I were writing the bulk of the music together, kind of knowing each other's limitations and kind of where we wanted to head with it. But I feel like for everyone, that was really the same thing as far as kind of being more comfortable in a band. What are we now? Geez, 8 years on, right? And all of those individuals have been in the band really since the beginning. I think Martin and I formed the band in 2018. But then Aaron, our drummer, joined us in 2019. Our singer Jake joined us in 2020. So those guys have been around a while at this point, 5 years, 6 years. Um, and that really shows. I think we've gotten really comfortable as a unit.
As you mentioned, so having a bass player change, which is one of the friends who left and another one joined, how did that affect the dynamic of the band?
Well, it's kind of interesting. On Sibylline Age, we had lost our kind of bassist that joined shortly after we started the band. His name was Russ, and he was a great guy. Still great friends with him. Kind of message him once in a while, but he didn't actually record on that record. So we had a session player play on the Sibylline Age, who's a friend of ours. So we were able to kind of direct him as far as parts and those sorts of things, and that came out great. Um, Trevor was in the band for a few years. So, he wrote his parts and kind of developed his parts for the songs on Clarion Call. And again, like I said, brought in some different elements. Turned out really great, played some shows. He exited the band early in 2024. I think it was probably like March. And then Kyle kind of came right in to play live shows with us. So he had, kind of interpreted some of the material that Trevor had already been playing live, some of the songs from Clarion that we had played live at that point. And, it's interesting because stylistically, every bassist we've had in the band has been quite different the way they approach it. Russ kind of approach it more like a guitarist, right? Because he's a guitarist first. Trevor also played guitar, but he was very much kind of a lead bassist, right? That's what Martin always termed, and I think is pretty accurate. Just really crazy, almost sometimes bordering on like technical death metal sort of riffs and runs and parts that he would play, especially on the fretless. Kind of gave it that cool element a lot of the times, that jazzy or kind of technical element. And then Kyle, same thing as he's a great musician. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He's been a great friend of mine for a very, very long time. So his big contribution, which is yet to be heard on a recording, but will be in the future, is he just has such a great feel and such a great pocket and such a great ability to just really sense what the music needs. So I'm really excited for folks to hear his contributions on the record. But everyone we've played with has been a phenomenal musician in their own right. They just all kind of approach it in a little bit different way. So I'm excited to really get to writing with Kyle and have him on a recording because we've made tons of music together, and it's always really special. I feel like when Kyle and I play together, regardless of what instrument he's playing. So whether it's guitar, keyboard, bass, um, vocals, he also does. So it gives us a lot of ability to be more dynamic, whether we're on stage or in the studio, because we've got all these individuals in the band that play multiple instruments and can write for multiple instruments and all that. So,
That makes sense. Um,
yeah.
are there any particular tracks that you're proud of from this album?
Yeah. So I would actually say probably not the songs you would think necessarily. I'm really proud of the opener Eclipticon. I wrote that song. That was kind of one of my contributions to the record, kind of like a solely written by me sort of track. There's a few songs on there that Martin kind of brought into the band, more or less fully formed, that I know he's really proud of, and they've become kind of staples of the live set. But I just really love that song for how aggressive it is. It's got some really cool kind of interplay in the middle section with a little bit of a heavier part. It's a little more aggressive for Idle Throne. We haven't really done a song that aggressive on our first two records. So I'm really proud of the way that one turned out because that was kind of like the vision, right, from beginning to end. But a song I'm really, really proud of is actually the title track. That was another one that kind of at least had its initial kind of formulation as a Jason idea. And that song for me was very much trying to just do what felt right and kind of do whatever we wanted. It's a song where initially, if you listen to it, you might go, huh, I thought this was this, thrash power metal band from Chicagoland area. Are they playing, a progressive rock song, right? But that's really where a lot of our influences lie and where a lot of our heart lies as far as kind of the progressive rock sort of sound. A lot of bands that influence some of our favorite progressive metal bands. So I like the way that that one turned out because there's a lot of cool influences that are different. There's keyboard, there's Hammond organ on that song. There's a lot of cool melodies. There's a section in the middle where we do kind of like a counterpoint sort of part that's really cool. So that song is just different, it's different, it's dynamic. I think the same could be said for the closer Falconer's Cry, which is the instrumental. That there's a lot of kind of those progressive elements on there that we're going to expand on, I think, in future recordings. But started moving in that direction on this record. Not to say there weren't, songs or ideas like that on the debut, but we really leaned into that a little bit more on this one.
That does make sense because I mean, when I listen to the album, even things like Porcupine Tree comes to mind.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I know. I appreciate your review of the record when you released it. And that was one of the things I picked up on. It's funny because it's like when you're writing a song, a lot of the times you don't think maybe intrinsically of some of those influences, but Porcupine Tree is one of my favorite bands. I love Porcupine Tree. Um, I went and saw them a few years ago and they played at, I forget what theater it was, but they did their Closure Continuation tour. And I was really excited that they came back, even if it is for just that record, just because they were such a huge influence on me. But, a lot of that playing with dynamics, right? And having parts that maybe are softer and then having the loud parts and kind of, having a song that twists and turns and is a little bit of a ride, That's one of the things I think I've gotten from Porcupine Tree and also a lot of other bands that are in that same space, just as far as influence. So, not being afraid to incorporate acoustic guitars and melodies and keyboards and those sorts of things just to make the arrangement a little bit more grand, right? And dynamic and big and interesting and cinematic, right? I think Porcupine Tree is a great band for that, especially their mid-period music. So, that's just something we're not afraid of and we're not going to shy away from. And I think part of the process of writing a Clarion Call was really coming to terms with that side of us as musicians. Martin, myself, Kyle, Jake, we've all played in progressive metal and progressive rock bands prior to this band. And that was one of the things we were kind of hesitant, at least early on, to really incorporate full stop into the band were those influences because we didn't want to just start another progressive metal band because that was kind of our comfort zone at the time. So that's why Sibylline, there were elements of that, but we didn't really make it a capital P progressive metal album. Whereas I think now that we're comfortable with each other, we really want to start exploring that side of the band more. Just because that's kind of where our heart's at. That's who we are as writers and musicians. And I think you'll see a lot more of that on future releases.
So, getting down to details, how does Clarion Call compare with Sibylline Age?
Yeah, so I think it to me sounds a little more focused. It's a little more honed as far as again, the musical content. It's interesting because it's a shorter record overall than Sibylline Age. Of course, it doesn't have kind of the big 12-minute title track like Sibylline Age did. Less songs. I think there's 8 songs on it, right? Versus I think there's like 10 or 11 on Sibylline Age. But if you look, there's a few tracks that are a little more expansive. As I said before, Eclipticon, I think, is 7.5 minutes long. King Among Jackals is like 8.5 minutes long. System Simulacrum is 7.5 minutes long. I think uh, so is Falconer's Cry, right? So the song lengths, the track lengths are a little bit longer, but there's less songs. And we kind of consciously wanted to do that just to make it kind of a classic, I'm using finger quotes here, a classic sort of metal record, right? As far as there's 8 tracks, there's an instrumental, think back to a lot of bands in the 80s and stuff that did that were great. You've got the Metallica records and all those were think of like Iron Maiden, right, where a lot of the early records had instrumentals on them and those sorts of things, but they had a certain flow to the album. So that's kind of what we wanted to achieve, is just make it a little bit more of a concise package. No true kind of epic songs on this one. Not to say we're shying away from that. We're definitely going to lean more into that, I think, in future recordings. But, it just felt really good about the songs we had. And we didn't want to continue developing additional ideas for it. We didn't want to turn it into a record that was just an hour long or even longer for the sake of it. We really felt like those 8 songs kind of constituted that statement. That's what we wanted the record to be. So when we had those songs in hand, it was kind of a conscious thing where it was like, yeah, this is the album. This feels good. We kind of knew early on how we wanted to sequence it and what the track list would be and everything. And, I thought that really came across kind of, even now, just listening back to it. I listened to it the other day for the first time in a while, and I feel like it flows really well and kind of accomplishes what we wanted to accomplish. So I think the sounds that we got overall are great and kind of much more indicative of who we are and where we're going as far as the guitar sounds. Really tried to push the lead playing in a way where, technically it's pretty involved. There's a lot going on. We're kind of playing to, in some cases, the peaks of our abilities at the current moment, right? But it's also hopefully melodic and has something that people can grab onto, and it's not just shredding, right? We really are conscious to not do that. We love a good guitar solo, but I want to make sure it's interesting, right? And that people have some melodic content or musical content they can grab onto. So I think it was really just that next step in the evolution, and that's really where we wanted to go versus Sibylline. That's the way I've kind of always likened it as folks have asked us about it, either in interviews or just at shows, right? They come up to the brunch table and they're asking us about the record. If Sibylline was kind of the let's put all these ideas in a blender and kind of see what sticks and see what type of band we want to be, Clarion is that next evolution of, okay, we did that record. What elements do we really like? What elements do we maybe want to explore more? What elements from Sibylline do we want to leave behind, right? Are we maybe not that type of band and we want to be more this type of band, or we want to explore these influences a little bit more? So I think it's, in my opinion, it's the best thing we've done yet. I love Sibylline, and there's some songs on there that I'm extremely proud of, but I can really see the evolution as we continue on here, and I think that Clarion's a good kind of first step at that. It almost feels like you might understand because I know you talk to millions of musicians, but Clarion almost feels like the first one, like the first real one. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Like, yeah, like, we're kind of firing on all cylinders, and now it's like, okay, this is what the band is. Okay, get it.
I do agree. Like Sibylline to me had multiple directions, whereas Clarion has one clear focus.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So what? 2 albums, a lot of shows. What is getting easier for the band?
Well, it's really good that Martin and I, we have a really good musical partnership. We have a really good friendship. So it's very easy for us to write songs. We've got a ton of songs already written and ready to go for whatever the next releases become. I think our tentative plan is in 2025 to have an EP, 3-song EP. A lot of that music is already recorded, so it just depends on when we can finish everything. The third record is well on its way as well. So right now, the tentative plan would be to continue kind of our 2-year cycle and hopefully have that record out probably late 2026 would be the plan. Um, but I think, the interplay overall has just gotten better and gotten tighter. You've seen us live a handful of times. I think we've much improved from those early days and just gotten that musical shorthand and kind of togetherness much better than even it was in the early days. I feel lucky and proud to be able to say that I play with such great musicians that can really tackle anything that I can come up with. You know, my imagination is really the limit. I would say my imagination and my ability to play this stuff is kind of the limit. So I come up with all sorts of crazy riffs and ideas, and so does Martin. And it's really great knowing that you've got a band in your corner that can pull it off, right? But a lot of it is not only the technical ability of the players and, you know, our ability to play our instruments, right? But it's also that chemistry and that ability to work together and kind of be a team and make it happen in the studio and make it happen on the live stage and make it entertaining for folks. So I think we've really developed as a live unit, and I feel proud of that. There's a long way to go, but I feel like if someone saw us now in 2025, right, and saw us in the early days, I think in 2021 when we were playing our first shows or played our first show, the show's gotten better. We've gotten tighter. We've, you know, kind of look at we always look at our live footage kind of as you know, Monday morning quarterback thing and say, oh, what can we improve? How can we get better? Oh, we played that a little fast. Let's do this. Let's do that. So, yeah, just that working together and just being a team, and it really helps too when you're in a band. And I'm lucky that, you know, all my bands that I'm in, I'm friends with everybody, which is great. They're not business transactions, you know, they're friendships. And that really, those sort of relationships, I feel like really help make the music better. And I think you can tell when you see us play or you hear it that that was made by a bunch of musicians that are on the same page in more than one way, right? So that's certainly helped that whole process get easier over time.
That makes sense. Now, one thing is to make a good record, but another thing is to be able to promote it. So how do you go about letting your music get out there?
Yeah, so in kind of the modern scene, right? Internet plays a huge part in that. That's probably I would say the lion's share of promotion is going to be web-based. So what I've kind of found through the cycle for sibling age is, you know, it's really important to partner with a good kind of promotion firm. So there's a few firms that I've used where, and it's also important to vet those firms because you want to make sure that it's you're working with partners that can promote the record, but also actually believe in the record. It's very easy to just find a random promotion house, right, or promoter on the internet and say, hey, here's my album, here's the money, do what you do, right? And it can show up on a million blogs and a million websites, and you can tell that that wasn't actually listened to, right? So you'd never want that. So I think it's important to um, work with, if you do want to work with a label, right? And in our case, the first two records or last two records we've released have been with Stormspell. The owner of Stormspell, Jordan, seems to really believe in our style of music and in the band itself. So there's promotion that comes from that and kind of sharing contacts through the label, which is, I guess, the same as it's ever been, right? But just at a much kind of smaller scale now. But then there's also partnering with those online promotion firms, and that just really helps to get it in front of people. There's so much music now that it's and I think it's a great thing. It's a little bit of a double-edged sword. It's a great thing because there's more bands out there than ever. So you really have to try to differentiate yourself. And I feel like if the record is good and you believe in it, um, then I think that's evident to the listener, but you have to get it in front of people. So I think all those things, you know, the band can only organically do so much. You know that the way algorithms are set up, I could share stuff on our band page till the cows come home and you'd never see it, even though you followed the band and everything else like that. So I think, you know, getting it out there, and trying to find those opportunities to kind of cross promote with different people that create content, create kind of metal focused content, whether it be YouTube, Instagram, all those sorts of things. It's all important. Now, I will say I'm not a big social media guy. I do kind of the best that I can in that space to promote my music and my albums, but you know, there's people out there that can and do make an entire career out of promoting things on social media, and they know how to navigate the algorithm and do all those things. And I'm not quite at that point, but I think it's having an awareness of that sphere. You can't just say, "Oh no, I'll just put it out there and let it do its thing," because unfortunately, you could have the best record ever, but if you don't have some sort of a presence online, it'll get forgotten about, and then the next day, it's on to the next 1,000 albums that came out. So sometimes it feels that way, but I think it's just, and I have to remind myself of this a lot, right? You're making the music for the music's sake, right? It's so at the end of the day, we make the album first because we love it and we believe in it, and then we hope other people resonate with that, right, and enjoy it. But um, to not get too caught up in kind of the rat race, I guess, as it were, um, because there's so much music out there. It's just impossible sometimes to keep track of everything. So,
That's right. I mean, so many great albums come out and go unnoticed. Um,
right.
you've mentioned Storm Spell Records. You did both albums.
Yeah.
Well, how would you describe the relationship with that label?
Yeah, it's been really good. I'm really appreciative because, when we released Sibylline, we had the album in hand prior. I mean, the way that a lot of those relationships work nowadays for a band of like our stature, right, is, we're doing everything on the front end ourselves. We're recording it. We, talk to the artist about the artwork. We go into the studio. We book our studio time. We pay for everything. And then really what we're looking for is distribution of the music, right? And then also support for promotion, right? And marketing the album and getting it out there a little bit better than we could do ourselves. So being a brand new band, unknown band, right? We were a few years from the formation of the band. I had the album in hand. And I just started reaching out to labels that I kind of thought were like-minded or had a similar kind of stable of artists, just as far as what we're trying to do. Really melodic, kind of guitar driven. Um, had a lot of kind of ties to that older style, that 80s sort of sound and 90s. And, um, Stormspell was very high on the list, right? And I got a few responses back, and I got some interest back from a few labels that were kind of similar size to Stormspell. But the response that I received from Jordan, the owner of Stormspell, really made me feel like this is the right person to partner with because he had a whole page notes on Sibylline. So I could tell he listened to it. And to me, that meant a lot. That always is going to mean whether you love it, you're lukewarm on it, whatever, as long as, if I have a discussion with someone, as long as they gave the music the time of day and engaged with it, to me, I appreciate that. That's great. Thank you for listening to the album. Thanks for listening with an open mind. And, so he seemed like he really enjoyed it. And I could tell from the comments that he made that he really listened to it and he was picking out things. Oh, I really like it. 2 minutes and this on track three. I like when you do this. And that reminded me of this. And I was a really big fan of that band back in the day. And I can hear the influence. And so it was a no-brainer. It was great. Yeah, let's work together. So we did Sibylline. I think it was successful. And when it came time to do Clarion Call with a label, obviously we wanted to kind of just reproduce what we had did previously and what worked so well. And yeah, it was a very easy conversation, and we ended up doing the CD release for that, and it was great. I would love to do other formats for Idle Throne, but just the nature of the music, I don't think we're ever going to be able to do a record that fits in with the constraints of an LP. Our first album was an hour long. Our second album was 50 minutes long. The third album will probably be closer to an hour again. So we're not really at least for doing it kind of our way, we're not really a vinyl band. I'd love to be, but I'd need to do double vinyls, and it's expensive to do a pressing of an album on one vinyl, right? So let alone a double album. Um, so I think for the time being, CD and digital is kind of where it's at for us, but it's been a great partnership with Stormspell. So again, I appreciate kind of in that space those proprietors of labels and those sorts of things, even promoters, even if you want to talk in the live space too, that really engage with the music and enjoy the music and are fans themselves of the music. Because as a creator, that really is great to work with someone like that because I feel like you're automatically on a very similar wavelength.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, with your schedule so busy with Wraith and regular life, how important is Idle Throne to you?
Yeah, the way I always describe it is, I don't classify my bands as, oh, that's my main band and that's my side band and that's my project or whatever. The way that I kind of view it is when I'm in Wraith mode, I'm in Wraith mode 110%, whether we're writing, we're playing shows. Right now, we're prepping for a little run we're about to do later this week. We're going out for 5 or 6 days, just kind of doing a Midwest run. So I've been prepping Wraith stuff 100%. I've been working every night on the set and relearning things and tightening things up and getting all my equipment ready to go. But when I get back, we'll have a little bit of break from Wraith and we're gonna continue recording the EP for Idle Throne. So I'll be in Idle Throne mode 100%. Um, so for me, it's easy to balance because they're different in a lot of ways. Wraith, as from talking to you, I'm sure you've probably picked up on the writing process for that band is a little different too. The four members of Wraith, we're all songwriters, so we all kind of develop ideas and songs and those things, and we write together in the jam room most of the time, right, and kind of put those ideas together. Whereas Idle Throne is a band that I formed, right? Martin and I formed it kind of as a partnership in 2018. So it's one of those where it's very much kind of, I think Martin and my conversations kind of dictate, not dictate, that's the wrong word, but it kind of steer the direction of the band as far as, hey, what do we want to do? Do we want to write a 20-minute epic song? Do we want to go more progressive? Do we want to be more thrash metal? Do we want to do this? Do we want to write a big dual guitar piece? Like, what do we want to do, right? What's the orientation? Whereas with Wraith, that was a band where I joined it and then I was kind of able to, as time went on and I became more of a full member, really start contributing ideas to the songwriting process and those sorts of things. So it's like for me, I kind of know when I'm writing what goes in the Wraith bucket as far as an idea and what goes in the Idle Throne bucket as far as an idea. Or things that I know I wouldn't bring to Wraith because it doesn't really fit with the overall style or sound. But I can bring to Idle Throne. So it's really liberating in a lot of ways to have multiple outlets musically because I'm not just a kind of a one style musician or player, I guess you could say. I've got a lot of different ideas. I love doing things that are more direct and short and to the point, but I also love the long form and being able to write a big 20-minute epic song with multiple movements and keyboard parts and orchestrations and all that. I love the flexibility and freedom to be able to do that. So with that, music is kind of my passion. It's my main outlet outside of career aspirations and work and those sorts of things and family, obviously. So I love being busy with it. I love having something on the horizon. I love having a project, having an album to work on, having a show to work for and practice for. So it comes kind of easy to me. And I'll always, regardless of where those bands kind of go in the future, always be a multiple band person, I feel like, because I need those different creative outlets. So Idle Throne is extremely important to me and will continue to be for those reasons.
That does make sense. Finally, where would you say you'd see yourself and Idletron, let's say 5 years from now?
Yeah, well, big thing for me is I hope that we continue to get those opportunities to play and to play kind of elsewhere, right? We really love playing kind of the Midwest, Chicago, Indianapolis. We've played Cleveland, we've played Cincinnati, we've kind of played our bubble, right? But as you have so many different festivals and different things that have popped up nationwide and even worldwide, I really hope within 5 years we get that opportunity to take our particular show, if not on the road, because I'd love to do some small scale touring where and when it makes sense. Um, to play those fests, I'd love to get out to the coasts. I know there's some great fests on the East Coast. There's some great fests on the West Coast. There's some great fests in Canada. There's some great fests in Europe that I feel like we would be a great fit for. So I really hope we have the ability to kind of expand that live show. Um, as far as albums, within 5 years, we'll probably have another handful of albums out. And I think, the direction that we're kind of hinting at with Clarion and that I think we're going to develop with future music is kind of going more in that progressive direction, right? The bands that really influenced us are bands like Symphony X, the early Dream Theater stuff from the 90s, the first three or four Dream Theater records, I would say Awake and Images and Words, and like I said, Symphony X, Fate's Warning. Um, really all eras of Fate's Warning I love, but um, so that's kind of the direction I think we're headed. We love that no holds barred. Let's explore a little bit. Let's kind of do what we want to do. Let's if we write a riff and it doesn't really fit in with kind of the thrash metal thing, right? That's not going to prevent us from developing it or using it. So I can certainly see on the third record and beyond, right, whatever comes next, that we're going to expand our horizons a little bit and continue to see where we can take it with this group of musicians and kind of the collaboration that we have. So yeah, I think we'll continue to release music at a steady pace just because we've got the music there and I think it's great. I'm really proud of it. And yeah, just the ability to continue playing shows and hopefully get outside of Chicagoland area more and more as the years go on, I think would be great. So
Jason, thank you so much for taking the time and speaking with me, and good luck in 2025.
yeah, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.